What an unexpected turn of events my planning for next year has taken. I thought we were doing this, and God was like, over here, to something that was not even on my radar. And I'm not kidding you guys. And I am so excited about next year. I mean, that's a good sign. So story time, guys. I'm going to take you through kind of the whole story and the thought process that I was going through at the time, because this story really is a testimony of we make our plans, but the Lord directs our steps. And so I thought it might encourage you, while at the same time letting you know some of what I've decided on for the 24-25 school year. My name is Rachel, and I am a homeschooling mom to 3 kiddos age 10, 14, and 17. And this is my 10th year homeschooling. I recently made a video which I will link below, where I talked about how I need simplicity for next year. I need help. I am wearing down on being able to do this all on my own. I did join a co-op last year, but it was a very light co-op. And so I had decided that since my middle child was getting ready to enter high school, I was going to put her in a full-time co-op. My son is going to kind of also take some very specialized classes somewhere else, which I will talk about in a future video about his high school plans. And so I was exploring some new things that I had never explored before. I need help because this past year has been very emotionally difficult for me, and not because of homeschool necessarily, but because of the spiritual battle. And as one of you put it, the arrows are flying. So it's time to bring in reinforcements. I need to save as much energy as I can for the spiritual battle. And so I decided I'm going to look for a little bit more help in homeschooling my kids. Here's where the homeschool planning story begins. Second semester, I had kind of decided I'm definitely putting my 9th grader in a co-op next year. She needs more accountability. She needs other teachers. She needs a little bit of a classroom setting where she will feel pressure to be prepared for class. And in my area, we have a co-op that can be full-time. You can actually pick and choose which classes you're going to take. And I just thought, well, I'm just going to have her take all of them. She will do it all day. So for high school, I think it's 5 classes then. Like, they don't offer a math class. You would still have to do that on your own. So I told her, you're going to do that. And maybe we'll be able to sign you up for volleyball next year. She enjoyed playing volleyball through the rec league. She actually wanted to continue playing volleyball. I looked into forming a homeschool volleyball team. I kind of was chattering with other moms about it. But then we found out that there was a Christian school semi-close that offered their extracurricular activities to homeschoolers. So we're thinking maybe play volleyball with that school, but it's 45 minutes away. So that's the plan. We were also thinking we would stay in the current co-op that we did this past year. That co-op only meets every other Monday, and it's done by lunchtime. So it's got more of, it's supposed to have a more fun vibe, more lighthearted, and then being every other week for just a morning, not a super huge commitment. So full-time co-op, possibly volleyball, and a smaller co-op. That was going to be my plan. And then I would also, at this full-time co-op that I was going to go to, I thought, well, while I'm there, I might as well see if there are any classes for my youngest one. So I had been keeping an eye on it as they came out with the new classes and when sign-up starts. Most co-ops are only going to offer registration to their current members first. So I had several friends who already do it, so I knew it was coming, and I knew what the classes were because they were kind of feeding me the information. So then here's where the Lord starts saying, the co-op that we were currently in, they came out with their classes for next year, and my high schooler was not excited about what was being offered to her. In fact, there were very little choices for her, and she really wasn't interested. We kind of just started feeling like, I'm not sure, but we'll see. Then I was told that registration was opening for this full-time co-op, and I was ready to jump in because they also have limits on some of the classes that you could take. And I was able to see some of these classes were filling up fast, and I needed to jump in if I was going to get my daughter signed up. My friend had told me sign up starts Monday, whatever day this was. And so I was literally going to wake up at 7 a.m. as soon as it opened, and I was going to register and get her signed up. And then all of a sudden she sent me an email literally the night before I thought all this was going to go down. And she said the board director said they want to do it a little bit differently this year. They want to meet all the new families, so they were having an open house, and they wanted prospective families to go to the open house, meet the directors, get a feel for how the co-op works, get a tour, all the things. You couldn't register until you did that first. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I can wait. While I was waiting, I was thinking, okay, here's all the things I'm going to sign her up for. They have a biology class. They have a history class. They have a creative writing class, a health class, public speaking class. Those were both semesters. So health one semester, public speaking the second semester. And then one of my friends was also teaching a worldview apologetics class. Those are the things that I was going to sign her up for. My youngest one, I was like, I got to get her into this art class, which was already waitlisted. But they told me sometimes people change their mind and drop out, so sign her up anyway. And was maybe going to put her in a math fact drill game, practicing your math facts with fun games class. So I was just pondering all these things I was going to do. And then the video that I did about all the language arts ideas I had. Okay, watch this video to get like more insight into what I was thinking during this time regarding, for my youngest, what I was going to do with her for language arts. Then one Friday afternoon, everything changed. It was literally the Friday before the week where we were going to go visit the co-op. So we were going to go visit the co-op on Thursday. This was the Friday before.
It was also the Friday before I recorded this video.
Thinking about my youngest and what I want to do with her for language arts, all of a sudden it popped into my head because I had gotten an email from one of my former CC friends about something completely different. But every time I get an email from her, I think about CC because that's where I met her. And all of a sudden it just popped into my head. I wonder if I could just sign Juliana up for the CC Essentials class. I really part of me misses community. I really love how Classical Conversations teaches grammar and writing. They use IEW for the writing part, but I love how they go through the grammar. I just loved it. It didn't work for my middle child very well because she has trouble focusing and sitting still in class at that time. But my youngest child is different. And I tried to do something similar to Essentials class with both my girls this year, but doing it on your own at home is so much harder than doing it in a classroom setting. Because in a classroom setting, there's other people there to answer the questions, right? So if your kid's having a bad day and they don't want to participate, well, there's other kids there to help fill in the gaps so your kid can still learn if maybe they're not the one who wants to speak up. So it popped into my head. I kind of just thought, I don't know, Rachel, like I also, if you guys have seen either of my CC videos, I have a pros and cons video here. That's a very popular video. It's been viewed by many of you probably. And then my CC burnout video. Part of my burnout was circumstances that would probably never be repeated again. One, because I've learned my lesson, and two, because 2020 happened while I was in SR. But regardless, I feel like I still have some sort of PTSD from all this because as soon as CC popped into my head, it's like I immediately started feeling angst. But I told myself, Rachel, you're just asking questions. You're just doing your research. You're not making any commitments. So I sent an email to my friend and said, hey, is your community full? I was thinking about signing up Juliana for Essentials, and do they have a need for an Essentials tutor? Because that was of all the jobs I had at CC, being an Essential tutor was the one that I actually really enjoyed and really loved. And so I would not mind doing that again. And being a tutor helps out with the hefty cost of Classical Conversations. So I reached out to the director and asked the exact same questions and told her I was only interested in Essentials. I wasn't interested in foundations. She said, we actually do need an Essentials tutor. And then she said, well, what about your high schoolers? Are you wanting to sign them up too? And I said, absolutely not. I have no interest in signing either of my high schoolers up. Latin would be a huge deal for my 14-year-old. Like, I just don't see her doing flashcards. I don't see her studying Latin to the degree, especially in Classical Conversations, that it needs to be studied. And so I would just I'm not interested for challenge. Then I told her, I said, I know it's the end of the year, but I really would like to come and visit the community. Are you guys still meeting or is your school year over? And she said, next Tuesday is our very last meeting. And I said, I'm coming. I need to come, because in my mind, I was thinking, I literally was having anxiety even entertaining this idea of Classical Conversations again. And I thought, I need to go visit this community. It was not the community that I came from. It was a community that I was always intrigued by, though. And honestly, had I stayed in CC, I probably would have switched over. So that was it. We were going to go visit, no commitments. I told her, I said, I got to visit this other co-op. I'm not making any decisions until I visit this other co-op. I just don't want to feel rushed. And at the same time, she said, that's fine. Take your time. I am waiting on applications for 3 or 4 other families, and then we'll be full. CC puts a cap on the elementary communities. When I was in CC, the cap was at like 48 students. I think probably unless somebody signs up for Challenge and they also have brothers and sisters who are in foundations, there might be some exceptions, but full communities I knew was going to be a problem in this particular community because it's a very popular one. Later that day, I mentioned the idea to my kids. We were sitting at the table and after our Bible study, and I mentioned the idea of maybe signing up for CC, and I was shocked at the reaction. First of all, my 10-year-old was like, yes, I want to join CC. I miss CC so much. And she was just going on and on and on about she wanted to join CC. My oldest child, this was probably the most shocking because he's 17 years old. He's the reason that I didn't go back to CC because it's so literature heavy and he doesn't like reading. I mean, if you don't like reading or if you struggle with reading comprehension, CC is a challenging curriculum to follow. But he told me,
I want to go back to CC. And you said no.
Oh, to my heart. I think he's misunderstanding what happened because we took the 2020-2021 school year off specifically because I was not going to do the masks and every community was doing the masks. And I think I did offer to go back to CC with him, but I told him that he needed to start with Challenge B. So he did Challenge A, which is 7th grade. We stayed home when his class moved up to Challenge B, which is 8th grade. And then the year I offered it to him, they all moved to Challenge 1, but he had never done Challenge B. So I told him at the time, if we go back, you have to do Challenge B because there is a huge jump between B and 1. And he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to not be with his class. And so that's why we didn't end up doing it. And I also explained to him how much reading, and he was okay with it at the time. But I do understand why he said he wanted to go back because one of the great things about CC is the friendships, is the community, is the discussion in class. So when you are reading a book or discussing history, it's a discussion. It's unlike a modern school where you're sitting in class listening to a teacher lecture at you. Classical conversations is about learning how to have conversations about things, learning how to debate and share ideas. So I think he missed that because he needed people to challenge him in that way. And I also think that he loves playing games. And so anytime you can study playing review games, he loves that. But it's too late now. But I was actually surprised at how much my kids miss CC. Now, my 14-year-old had a little bit of a different take because her personality is going through some changes right now. When we left CC, she was that happy-go-lucky, friends with everybody girl, and now she's a teenager who's a little bit more reserved, has some walls up. This is what she said. She's not into making new friends, which I don't think is completely true. I think with every teenager, there's a little bit of apprehension about if you'll be able to make new friends, if they'll like you, if they'll accept you. So going to a new place is always going to be a little scary. Now, this other co-op that we were looking at was totally different because she had friends that she knew was there. So she was excited about going there and doing school with these friends. CC also had people there that she knew. My 14-year-old I don't remember what her reaction was, so hers must have been kind of quiet, except for maybe she did say she also didn't want to leave CC, but it's been 4 years, it is what it is. We're going to this other co-op. So it really wasn't an issue anyway. So I told them, I said, well, Juliana and I are going to go visit CC on Tuesday. Then the weekend went by, and this angst that I was feeling, I kept telling my husband, I feel like I have PTSD from our former CC experience, and I didn't know what to do with it. But as the weekend passed, Saturday and then on to Sunday, the anxiety slowly started to subside. So I reached out to the director and I said, I'm also just going to go ahead and bring my 14-year-old to sit in on one of the challenge classes just to see, because she had kind of indicated to me that if I wasn't comfortable with Latin, I'm still the teacher. She calmed my concerns enough about Latin where I thought, okay, I'm the teacher. She doesn't have to do Latin if I don't want her to. So let's just see what happens. And I knew one of her friends was in the Challenge A class. So I said, let's just go visit Challenge A because, if I was going to sign her up, I'm not going to put her straight into the high school class because it is a huge leap in workload. So I told myself I would put her in the Challenge B class. She could still get college credit because I'm the teacher and I can give credit for whatever I want. And they actually are doing, in Challenge B, they actually do college level logic. So it's going to be fine. We're just going to visit. That's all. That Sunday night was the day before the last day of our co-op that we were currently in. And that following Monday was when they were opening registration for the new school year. And the way that I've been involved in this co-op in years past and not been able to get my kids in the classes that they really wanted because too many people beat us to the punch and the class sizes are limited. So I knew there were certain classes that would be very popular. We needed to get there early Monday morning and sign up for these classes if we were going to do this. So Sunday night, I was filling out the forms and talking to my husband, and he was like, Rachel, you're literally considering doing this every other week co-op. You're considering doing all day CC on Tuesdays and then all day co-op on Thursday. And I was like, it'll be fine. Like you sacrifice for your kids. You do what you got to do. And he was like, I don't think you're going to be able to do this. I think you're already getting in over your head. And I was trying to tell him, like, the co-op on Thursday, though, I don't have to sit in class with them. They said, like, when Juliana's not in class, we can go somewhere else and I can do schoolwork with her while she's not in class. So really, that Thursday would kind of be a free day. I was thinking, I'll edit my videos that day. I'll bring my laptop. I'll get a lot of stuff done. It won't be that big of a deal. But he just thought it was a bad idea. I asked my high schooler. She didn't want to do this co-op again. I asked my youngest after considering the crocheting class being only for beginners, and she was like, you know what? I'm happy about us possibly doing CC. I'm good. We don't have to do it. Because at this point in time, too, my husband and I had just decided that same day that we are definitely signing my 10-year-old up for classical conversations for both foundations and essentials. So I had told the director, I'm not making any decisions until I visit this other co-op. But her enthusiasm for wanting to go back to CC, it just won me over. And when I talked earlier about how I needed simplicity, some of my most simple homeschool years were the years that I did CC. CC was never overbearing to me. The overbearing, in terms of the homeschool, the overbearing part to me was taking on all these extra roles to help run the business. That was the part that burned me out, not the homeschool experience and not tutoring. So there were a couple years in CC that were completely wonderful. And then as I started loading up my plate, it became too much. But I thought, this is the kind of simplicity that I want. We're going to do it for my 10-year-old. So then we went to CC on Tuesday. I brought my 14-year-old. She sat in the challenge class while I visited the foundations class with my youngest one. And when I walked into the community, to my surprise, I saw several families there that I had been in community with at my old community who I loved. I loved those families. So it's like the people in my former community that I actually felt like I had a relationship with, several of them were in this community, which was wonderful. And then just the feeling of, I can't describe to you how it felt being there all day. I felt like home. I felt like this is what I have been missing. Why didn't I think about coming back to CC sooner? Honestly, why didn't I think about coming back sooner? I could have come back with just my younger ones sooner and left my older kids at home to do work on that day, or I could have brought, an older kid in and they could have just found a quiet room to do their stuff. Why didn't I think of this sooner? I handed the director the check. My youngest was all signed up. My kids came at lunchtime and they were tired. I'm like, they were not used to being gone all day after lunch. They were fizzled out. And my high schooler was just like,
nope, I am not doing CC. I'm doing this other co-op.
And that's what she was telling people too. I really want to do this other co-op. And I was like, well, we're going to go visit it on Thursday. So we'll see. I was a little bit bummed that the director told me we might not need an essentials tutor because one of the tutors can't decide if she wants to do it again or not. But either way, she needs a tutor. So I will either be an essentials tutor or a foundations tutor, but I would so much rather be an essentials tutor and teach the grammar with all the sentence diagramming. And then maybe I would have some really cool do videos for you guys regarding that, but I'm not sure yet at this point. So Thursday, we visited this other co-op. Feeling there was quite different from classical conversations. One of my friends was teaching class, so I didn't get to talk to her. Another one of my friends I did get to talk to, but this co-op was really just like in a hallway of this one church, and that's where everything was done, in this hallway that had multiple classrooms coming off of it. And so when kids weren't in class, they were hanging out in this hallway. It felt crowded. It's because it's not like there were a lot of tables and places to sit. A lot of them were sitting on the floor doing their homework. My daughter went into the science class with her friend, and she loved it. She said, one thing that I love about this co-op is you get to switch classes. You're not in the same room all day, with the same people. You're switching classes and you have different people you're going with. One of the cool things about this co-op too is all the teachers are just that. They are directing the assignments, like they make the lesson plan. They're teaching that week. Your kid has some sort of homework that they turn in the next class, and the teacher even grades the homework and keeps track of the grades for you. I mean, that would be simple, right? If I'm not even having to keep track of grades, my sole responsibility would just be to make sure my kid gets the work done. That would be awesome. Like, that's kind of the accountability aspect that I was looking for. Like,
Nope, Mom's not the bad guy. I'm not the one who gave you that grade. Your teacher did.
but I was still unsure. So I told the board members that day that we were also considering CC, although my high schooler was pretty adamant that we were not. At this point in time, I was still thinking if I joined this co-op that I might sign my youngest one up for at least one class so that she's not bored all day, because she was pretty bored being there. She didn't go visit any of the classes. She just hung out with me in the hallway. And this church had a preschool going on. They host other co-ops. So they said there's probably a place that I could go and do schoolwork with her, but it kind of just depends if the church is using those rooms too. So it kind of felt a little bit more iffy to me. The downside of me not joining this co-op is I have some very close friends that I've met through homeschooling who are going to be in this co-op. So it is such a conundrum now. But I told my high schooler, well, actually, I went home and I told my husband, and he really was just like, why are you considering 2 co-ops? And I'm trying to do what's best for my child. All of my kids have such different needs. I'm also trying to maintain a relationship with my daughter and not make her always mad at me. So in that sense, I'm trying to keep the peace, right? But he was like, I'm going to support whatever you decide, Rachel, whatever you want to do. And I asked him, I said, well, what do you think we should do? And he said, I think you should do classical conversations. So here's the thing too, regarding classical conversations versus this other co-op. Classical conversations, this is one of the challenges that they have with their challenge levels, is drawing in new students the higher the grade level. Some of it's because of the Latin, some of it's because of what they learn in logic and debate. So it's almost like once you get to high school, it takes a very specific personality of a child to be able to jump into classical conversations in high school. Much easier to jump in 7th grade, or in any grade in elementary, it's easy to jump in. 7th grade, 8th grade is fine. High school takes a special student because of the workload and because of all those building blocks that have already been laid by CC, because that's how their program was created. So I told my husband, the conundrum is she really wants to do this co-op with her friends and she's been excited about it. And I kind of had been telling her all semester, this is what we were doing. And I didn't even think about CC until a couple days ago. And now all of a sudden I'm having thoughts. But this is like the last year where I actually could jump into CC with her, because she's a freshman and I could drop her down to Challenge B. It would be a lot more weird, I guess, if she would come in as a sophomore and then I tried to drop her down at Challenge B, and coming in at Challenge 1 would be difficult. Whereas the other co-op, I feel like if we do CC and it doesn't work out, the other co-op, you definitely can jump in a year, because it's just all basic high school classes offered for 9th through 12th grade. It's not a classical model. That's the thing about classical homeschooling, is it's those foundation blocks, and it's harder to jump in up here if this hasn't been laid. It's not impossible. It's just not how the classical model is designed. So I said, she's really against this. I don't know. I'm butting heads a lot with my daughter this year. And so it just gives me anxiety to even think about doing something that she's not going to be all in on. So I reached out to the Challenge B director and I said, I think I want to visit again just with my high schooler, and we want to sit in on the Challenge B class. So we did it. She wasn't happy about going back, but I said, I'm going to sit there with you the whole time. And I'm telling you, when I sat in the Challenge B class, they had already done their mock trial, which is basically they are mock trial, like they're playing out a courtroom scene. They've learned parts. It's not a play, but they've learned parts about being a lawyer, or if they were the witness, or if they were the defendant, and so on and so forth. And they debate this other team and the judge decides who won. They had already done that, but they were talking about it. I was getting excited. I was like, this is such a cool experience. I think she would really enjoy that. The other thing they were working on is short stories. The whole second semester, they work on writing their own short story. So every week that they're getting together, they're working on one part of their short story. I don't know exactly how it works. I think, for example, 1 week, they're just figuring out their characters. Who's the main characters? Who's going to be the antagonist and the protagonist, stuff like that. Figure out their setting, figure out what the climax is going to be. And they're kind of very systematically instructed on how to write your own short story with all of these great details in them. So they were talking about that. They were going through a logic lesson, which was way out of my league. But I talked to the challenge director, and she was explaining to me how all of her kids get logic because one of the very experienced homeschool moms had taught her some very fundamental things that just made the light bulb go off for her as a director. And so when she taught these to her students, she's like, they get it. I don't know how, something about truth trees, but if she is that good at teaching logic, I was like, this is what our generation needs. We need logic. And this was the other thing that kind of drew me to CC is the learning how to debate. Because one of the things when you do go to an information meeting for classical conversations and they're talking to you about challenge years, they tell you one of the strengths of the program is they lean into these teenage years when your teenagers start pushing back on you and they want to argue about everything, they want to debate, they want to challenge you. They lean into that and they teach them logic, fallacies. They teach them how to write persuasive essays. So they're teaching them how to build their arguments and argue well. And I thought maybe this is what my daughter needs. Like maybe this is what will light her up in terms of education, is her ability to argue and to share her opinion. She's very opinionated. So in my mind, there was all kinds of other stuff going on that day. Oh, I saw so many challenge kids try to engage my daughter all day long in like the recess that they were doing in the gym, playing the games that they were playing. I think they were playing spike ball. And I saw her with her wall up because I know what it looks like. And so they would ask her to play a game and she would say, no, I'm good. She's acting all shy. I kind of felt like she's just really trying hard not to make friends because they were trying very hard to engage her. By the end of the day, right before we were leaving, she was participating in spike ball. And when I said, come on, it's time to go, Natalie, she hugged one of the girls she was playing with. I was like, oh my goodness, this is what I remember from CC. There's all these friendships, these multi-age friendships. And when we were walking out the door, I was like, who was that you gave a hug to? And she was like,
oh, I don't know. I don't even know her name.
Anyway, I loved it. And so I left thinking,
oh my goodness, I think this is going to be okay.
So I decided, okay, I'm going to take her out for I can't remember what we did, ice cream, or I took her to get a boba drink. She loves those bursting boba drinks. And I just wanted to get a feel for how she was feeling. And I said, why is it that you don't want to join CC? And it has nothing to do with CC. She's not scared of CC. It has everything to do with she had already made her mind up that she wanted this other community. She knows people there, her closer friends that she's regularly in contact with are there. And then she told me, about the switching classes thing and not sitting there in your same class all day. But then she said this.
But I know you're going to sign me up anyway, so whatever.
I took that as she's going to accept whatever decision that we make, because my husband and I had already been making it clear to her, we are going to listen to what you have to say, but we are going to make the decision for what we think is right. So she's not going to get to choose. We are going to listen and consider, but we are making the decision. So when she said, I know you're going to sign me up for it anyway, I felt like sometimes, kids, they're scared and they want you to make the decision for them. Maybe so that if it doesn't work out, they can blame you. And if it does work out, then it'll be fine. But then if they chose it and then it doesn't work out, they don't want to take the blame. That's kind of what I feel like kind of is going on here. I didn't tell her that we were doing this. My husband and I were like, how are we going to break this to her? We deliberated probably 2 or 3 weeks. We didn't tell her. I prayed about it with my close family, let my parents know what I was thinking. And I also let them know about my anxieties about telling her, you never want to sign your kid up for something and then have them ruin the experience for everybody else. But I really don't think she's not going to be that kind of child. She's going to accept it and she's going to try to fit in. That's what she's going to do. We kind of both just decided she needs to be challenged. I have really held her hand a lot the last few years because of her ADHD. I've been very understanding. Like I literally write out her task list every single day for what she has to do. But at the same time, and she's been doing better this year at being independent, but at the same time, I also feel like she has too much time on her hands. She needs to be challenged. She needs more hobbies. We need to make new friends. She has a very limited friend group, and I don't want her to hang her hat on just 1 or 2 friends. I want her to have more friends than that. And that was the one thing, honestly, that drew me to this particular CC community, is because they had a reputation for doing a lot more with each other outside of community day. Like, they do family campouts, they do mom's night out, they get the teens together frequently. And that was something that I was missing in my old community. That was something I wanted, and my old community just didn't do. So I kind of told her, I was like, you're going to have lots more opportunities to hang out with your friends, because they told me after almost every community day, there's a lot of teens that will go hang out at somebody's house afterwards. So my husband and I decided, all right, we're going to tell her. We took her on a date. I don't think she knew what was coming. We took her to the coffee shop that she likes. It has the boba drinks. We got her boba drink. And then my husband took the lead and told her, we're going to sign you up for CC. We let her explain the reasons why she's anxious about it, why she wants to do this other one. But honestly, her reaction was so much better than I expected. She really didn't fight it. She explained her disappointment, and at the same time, she accepted it, drank her drink, and then was happy and smiley after that. And so we went to the mall to go shopping because I was in a good mood, right? When you have good interaction with your teenage child after something like that, I felt like, all right, I'm going to do something nice for her now. So we went shopping. So we're doing CC. Can you believe it? Within a week's time frame, my plans got flipped over. I might still sign her up with my son in the public speaking class in the other co-op, because my son definitely needs public speaking, and I think he would enjoy it more if my daughter was in it with him, and then she would have one class with her friends. If you guys have specific questions about classical conversations, or about my decision, or about my experience with classical conversations, or anything, drop the question in the comments below. If there's a lot of questions, maybe I will do a follow-up video, like a classical conversations Q&A for you. So I can't believe this turn of events. I thought we were doing this, and God was like, over here to something that was not even on my radar. And I'm not kidding you guys. It was not on my radar that I would ever go back to CC. And to prove that, I actually did sell some of my CC curriculum a couple years ago. And I actually tried to sell a lot more last year. The funny thing is, because when I try to sell my curriculum, I'm still trying to get, at least a half or 75% of what I paid for it if I kept it in very good shape. And so it didn't sell in the places that I tried to sell it. The one thing that did sell was my Latin. It's like a message from God. Get rid of the Latin, but I'm not going to let you sell anything else because you're going to need it later. So I wasn't able to sell the logic that she's going to need. There's just a lot of stuff that I still have that I'm not going to have to buy, which is awesome. And then of all those language arts curriculums that I was debating about, such wonderful language arts curriculums, but we are going to go back to essentials in IEW writing. I am going to stick with Fix-It Grammar for all three of my kids. And I am so excited about next year. I mean, that's a good sign. That's a good sign when you feel excited to join a community. And that's one of the reasons I left CC, because I was not excited to go back the next year. I was burned out. I wasn't excited about going to community. This is the community where I knew there were people that I already felt a bond to there, and families that I wanted to get to know more. And then, like I said, I was very happily surprised to see some of the families that I didn't know were there, who were some of my favorite families too. If you guys need to be reminded about the pros and cons of CC, because they're valid. After I made this decision, I actually went back and watched all my CC videos to see if my opinions had changed, and they haven't. So I'm being very authentic and true to myself still. These pros and cons are still valid. Otherwise, YouTube thinks this is the video you need to watch. Let me know your questions below. Until next time, bye.